A new Wall Street Journal poll shows Democrats getting their lowest approval number among voters in 35 years, with Republicans outperforming them by nearly 20 points. How big of a red flag should this be for Democrats a year before the midterms? And what can they do to improve their perception among voters?
It's red everywhere, Rev. And it's not just a red flag. This is a blaring red alarm that Democrats should not ignore. And I say that thinking about how angry people are, because Democrats specifically ran on a platform in 2024 about how dangerous Donald Trump is, how he would lead an authoritarian type of regime in this administration, and how he is now acting on that. And Democrats have yet to formulate an explicit, comprehensive response to someone that they identified as a threat. They're not treating him as a threat. There's these attempts to use normal tactics in politics that no longer apply to the playbook or the reality that we're experiencing. And I think it's important for Democrats to listen to this and recalibrate, even including how they treat candidates who do excite voters, who do expand the number of people engaging in elections. And of course, I'm talking about New York City mayoral candidate, the Democratic nominee, Zohran Mamdani. The fact that Democrats have not overwhelmingly endorsed his campaign and then see this type of polling, which show them down, means that they need to reset themselves, not only in responding to Donald Trump, but also in engaging younger candidates who are expanding the base and exciting the public, because that's something that they're going to need critically in 2026.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So once again, we got to talk about the Democrats, who are currently in a state of free fall as their approval rating continues to decline, despite the fact that over the past, 6 or 7 months since the election, they have been extremely Trump deranged, right? They've been very Trump deranged, and it hasn't worked, right? They haven't made any progress at all whatsoever since the election. And in their efforts, in order to figure out what is going on, like what is the problem, Democrats decided to basically examine everything except the real problems in their party that caused them to lose the election. Like, for example, having bad leadership, weak leadership, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, not good candidates, policies, terrible policies, inflation, open borders, soft on crime, too extreme on woke issues. They don't stand for anything except being against Trump. No. They didn't really look at any of that stuff, right? But the so-called autopsy that they ended up doing basically concluded that they weren't Trump deranged enough, right? Yes, the Democrat Party autopsy revealed that the problem with their party, the real problem with their party, is that Democrats aren't Trump deranged enough. Take a look.
Let's talk about the autopsy to which you paid attention. Democrats did an autopsy of 2024. It's described as avoiding the likeliest cause of death. The report alleges that the DNC is performing an audit of what went wrong in last year's election, but it will not touch on Biden's refusal to drop out of the race until the last minute, nor will it comment on Kamala Harris's campaign strategy. Instead, it mostly argues that donor money could have been spent more effectively. In particular, the people briefed on it said the after action review is expected, which is another word for autopsy. God, the way that people spin words in this world is amazing. Is expected to place blame with Future Forward, the party's main super PAC, which spent $560 million to support Biden and then Harris. They said the report would argue that Future Forward spent far too much propping up Harris and not nearly enough attacking Trump. It is expected also to argue that Future Forward's advertising approach was too focused on television programs to be affected, and it will review the lack of coordination between the super PAC's advertising and the Harris campaigns, which were often not in sync. Cenk, according to you and what you've seen thus far, even though the autopsy is not quite in our hands, did they address the problem?
I mean, they're literally saying we're not going to address the problem. Then why bother doing it? I mean, it's embarrassing, isn't it? When you put out a report and you say, okay, we're gonna look into what went wrong, but not Biden or Harris, the two candidates at the different times.
Yeah, I do find that to be quite strange. The inability of the Democrat Party to self-reflect and to acknowledge basic truths about their party right? But hey, if they continue to refuse to self-reflect and to acknowledge the fact that their party is broken because they become too extreme, right? They become too far left. They're going to get taken over by communists, right? And the party is going to fail, okay? This is why you have people openly calling for Zohran Mamdani to be the leader of the Democrat Party, right? This is why your party is even in a position where you can be taken over by communists, is because you have weak, non-existent leadership, okay? And we got to talk about the weak, non-existent leadership, because you would think that the Democrat nominee, who was also Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, would be the de facto leader of the Democrat Party. She would be the person that's guiding and leading the Democrat Party right now. But no, she's actually been missing in action as she decides whether or not she wants to have another failed presidential run, or does she want to run for California governor. And I got some bad news for Kamala Harris. I think that her political career in regards to being an executive might be over, okay? First and foremost, because President Trump has just as good of odds as being the 2028 presidential nominee as Kamala Harris at this point. And technically, as of right now, President Trump isn't eligible to run again for a third term. But him and Kamala still have the same odds of being the 2028 presidential nominee. Take a look.
For the 2028 presidential election. And overall, Vice President J.D. Vance tops the list with 28%, followed by Gavin Newsom, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to round out the three. Marco Rubio comes in at 6%, Kamala Harris at just 4%. She's tied with President Trump, who is ineligible to run for re-election, so I don't know what that gets her, really. Let's break it down by party now. In the top three, J.D. Vance, far and away the top pick for the Republican nomination with 56%. Secretary Rubio trails far behind with 7%. And on the Dem side, Newsom, AOC, and Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg, all within about 8 percentage points.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. That is really, really, really embarrassing, considering how she was the vice president of the United States and the Democrat Party nominee. As of right now, you have just as good of odds of President Trump getting a third term as Kamala winning the presidency. That's really, really, really embarrassing. It's really embarrassing. But again, this is what happens when you overthrow democracy within your own party and you install a puppet to be the nominee, somebody that nobody voted for and nobody wants to vote for her to this day. So the news gets even worse for Kamala Harris, because if she doesn't run for president, then surely she's going to run for governor of California. However, that is not guaranteed either, because apparently Democrats are not excited at all about Kamala Harris running for governor of California.
What I did is I talked to a lot of people on the ground in California, in the House, who are looking at what it would mean for them, how it would affect their races, including a lot of these marginal House Democrats. Among them, George Min, Dave Min, who won a seat in Orange County last year, flipped a seat, or held that seat on, and he said he was having a nice time talking to reporters about what his district would be and how tough it was. I asked him about Kamala Harris, and he literally bolted away from me and ran onto the House floor. I asked George.
I know how that feels.
Yeah, you do. More than most. George Whiteside's another congressman who did flip a seat in the outskirts of L.A. last year, and I asked him about it, and he paused for a very long time thinking about what to say, and finally ended on, well, if she decides to run, that's her prerogative. That said, a lot of California Democrats are looking at the current field of gubernatorial candidates and saying they don't see someone in there who has the stature and the experience to stand up to Trump, and they know, based on what this 6 months have been so far for Gavin Newsom, what he's been dealing with, that that's going to be a big part of whatever California's future holds.
And you talked to Nancy Pelosi, who obviously you know very well, in that book about Nancy Pelosi. Her quote is very telling. She said, Isaac asked her, what should she do here at Harris? She said, I want her to do whatever she wants to do about running for governor.
And that's the kind of quote that just screams, please do it.
I mean, they do have a long history, those two.
Long story. A long and tortured history. But it really is remarkable for someone who was just the standard bearer for the party in a massive national election that you really can't find people who are saying, yes, we love her, she's our heroine, and we can't wait for her to get in this. I found the same thing when I was reporting in California a couple of months ago, that you don't find a a huge amount of people saying that they can't wait for her to run. And you don't find a huge amount of people saying that they think she would be great at the job either. It's not necessarily a position that her background and experience they feel make her uniquely suited for, despite all of her qualifications. And I think there's also a sense of where has she been since the election, right? Tim Walz has been out there on the trail, pounding the pavement on a sort of apology tour, trying to figure out what went wrong. She's really been in hiding. She's made a few public appearances, but she has not been out there really. And you know, you have a Democratic base that is angry and terrified and really wants to see their leaders fighting, and she hasn't been out there fighting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah. So there's no excitement whatsoever. And the news gets even worse for Kamala because her ex-boyfriend, Willie Brown, is actually telling her not to run, right? He's basically saying that Kamala's time as an executive in politics is over because she's not a good executive. Like, this is just not her strong suit, and she should really quit, right? She should quit and go back to legal work. That is literally what he's saying. He's saying, do not run for governor. And nobody knows Kamala better than old Willie, right? We know that Willie Brown know Kamala Harris personally. So without further ado, let's get into this.
Kamala Harris has said she will decide by the end of the summer whether she's going to run for California governor or run for president. Her potential entry to the governor's race has frozen the race, with donors and candidates waiting on her move. Now, former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, her one-time mentor and one-time romantic partner, is urging caution.
She may not want to run for governor of the state of California. That may not be where she should be going. I think it's going to be difficult for her to win that job.
Willie Brown sitting down for this rare and candid interview with John Slavitt, who is the founder and host of the State of Gold podcast. John joins us now in studio. Welcome. Congrats on the podcast.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you mano a mano.
So what did Willie Brown say to you about Kamala Harris? Because there was a lot there.
Yeah, well, first of all, kudos to Willie, age 91, still going strong, still sharp. I mean, I think that's amazing. You know, he in effect said he doesn't think governor is a fit for her. Mm-hmm. He talked about her strengths in the legal world, but not as an executive, which to me was pretty stunning because this is a guy who knows her very well. He's a legend in Democratic politics, right? He's been a mentor to Kamala, and he actually cares about the future of California authentically. And he, in effect, said she should try something different.
And he also said to you that he told her that when Joe Biden offered her the vice presidency, that she should turn it down and try to be the attorney general instead.
He did. First he chuckled. He's got a great, kind of knowing chuckle. And he said, he said, I got in trouble for this when I said it. But what he told me is that when she was one of the final five and Biden was reviewing the final candidates, he recommended to her when she asked him for his advice that he suggest that Biden nominate her as the attorney general. And it goes back to this theme of he believes that Kamala is better in the legal world, not as an executive. And that's so important right now in terms of what California needs, which he and I talked about further in the episode.
And he said that as Attorney General, she might end up on the Supreme Court, which is where he thinks that she would be a better fit. He also said after that conversation, she never called him again. So that was apparently not the advice she wanted to hear. Obviously, she took the vice presidency, tried to become president. You've been talking to people all over the state about Kamala Harris. What are you hearing from people?
Well, I mean, as of a few months ago, when she was still funded by the U.S. government, right? The VP, I think, has 6 months of support from the U.S. government, has a team,
Secret Service,
protection, et cetera. Now that's evaporated. But she was doing a lot of polling to understand her image and standing nationally in 2028. And my understanding from people close to her is that it does not look good. That national standing and running again nationally does not look good for her. So the obvious question is, what does she do next? Given that California is such a Democratic state, the machine is so strong, the logical question is, will she throw a hat into the ring?
Right. And does she actually even want to be governor of California. And that's something that she's thinking about now. She says we'll get an answer by the end of summer. I don't know what that means. Is that Labor Day? Is that September 21st, the equinox? Who knows?
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Kamala's career is over, at the very least as an executive. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I mean, as Willie Brown pointed out, I think he had a point, right? I think Willie Brown knows Kamala very well from what we can observe, okay? Which is that she ran her campaign terribly, right? She blew $2 billion on stupid things. The Call Her Daddy podcast, I mean, she spent, over $100K or something like that just to have the studio set up in her location instead of going to the studio. You know, she basically refused to do the Joe Rogan podcast because she was so afraid that he'd expose her. She was paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to people like Roland Martin and Al Sharpton for friendly interviews, okay? Millions to Oprah, Beyonce, right? All of these people were getting paid for their fake support of Kamala Harris. And it really was a campaign built on a house of cards, right? That's what it was, okay? That's what it was. And I think we kind of saw her ability to manage, and it's just not good. I mean, look at the way she managed the border. She was border czar. She was so bad at it that the mainstream liberal media tried to rewrite history and claim that, no, she was never in charge of the border, right? That's how bad she was at that job. So I think that Willie Brown has a point. Maybe, just maybe, Kamala needs to understand that, hey, this is not for me. Right? Being executive, running stuff is not for me. Maybe I'm better off working for somebody else, right? Being an employee. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Everybody has their strengths. Everybody has their weaknesses. Okay? Some people are meant to work for, others. And some people are meant to lead and to, be the executive. Kamala clearly is not one of those, right? She's not one of those. So, again, this is devastating. Her chances of winning at the national level, slim, very slim. And nobody's excited about her campaign for governor. Okay, so, I mean, I think at this point, she's probably going to choose to run for governor in order to save face, right? She's not going to humble herself and understand that, hey, maybe this is just not for me. I think she will try to run for governor. But if she loses that race, her career is like actually really, really, really over at that point. I think that she should save some face and just bow out of politics, right? Just always be that, that figure that, hey, she made her mark and that's it, right? I mean, she got the title of what? First female or a black woman vice president, right? I mean, hey, she might as well be happy with the fact that she overachieved, right, significantly in her career and, going about her life, right? That's probably what she should do. But hey, we know politicians and their egos that won't let them do that, right? It won't let them do it. So we're going to see what her next move is. Regardless, this is not good. It's not good. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.